Hello and welcome to Digital Transformation for Humans with your host, Amy. In this podcast, we delve into how technology intersects with leadership, innovation, and most importantly, the human spirit. Each episode features visionary leaders who understand that at the heart of success is the human touch, nurturing a winning mindset, fostering emotional intelligence, and building resilient teams. Today's conversation is going to focus on intrapreneurship, leading innovation and AI initiatives with impact. Roland Williams, an American in Sweden, is our expert guest today. Welcome, Roland.
Hello.
Great to see you here today. Let's start our conversation and transform not just our technologies, but the ways of thinking and leading. And if you are interested in connecting or collaborating, you can find more information in the description. Subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes. Roland, let's start today's conversation with introducing you and telling a few words about your journey. It's very exciting that you've been working with big companies, corporations like IBM, Coca-Cola, and you've seen so many businesses from inside globally. And you also wrote a book on entrepreneurship, which is super valuable. So please start with introducing yourself, telling a few words about your path, your experience, and about your book as well. And then we're going to delve into the details and everything I'd like to ask you about today.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is really wonderful. Um, my background is really in communications. I have worked with, as you say, large organizations like IBM and Coca-Cola, and then I was invited to work in Sweden. So I moved. I literally relocated and came to Sweden and had the privilege of working on the merger of Astra and Seneca, and quite a few other companies. It's what's also interesting about this time that we're living in is that we have seen in the last even 2 decades or so, we've seen so much happening with our tools, with our devices, with the speed of even broadband. I mean, it's things have just are moving in so rapidly that it's almost hard to keep up. Social media, there's all kinds of stuff, and I think that sort of convergence of technology and even behavior is kind of it's really kind of shaken the core of corporations, enterprises, hospitals, schools, you name it, public, private, everybody has been affected. We also saw quite an uproar with the global pandemic and even the financial crisis of 2008. We saw, what happens when we're not prepared for what's happening in the long term. In other words, so I've seen corporations have such a short-term focus on making money right now, so to speak. Obviously, we all need to focus on the bottom line, sure, but what happens a little deeper? What happens even beyond that? What happens? What can we do to be more sustainable? And I think that there is now a very positive shift in the sense that business leaders are starting to ask those kinds of questions to consultants and whatnot. Okay, how do we do this? What's the best way forward? And I think that's really wonderful to see. The book, The Principles of Intrapreneurial Capital, I wrote with Albert Bengtsson and Brigitte Stjärne. We in the book, actually, we talk about 2 different systems are at play here. You've got the stable system, the way things have sort of always been. I think Albert likes to talk about it in terms of gravity is a great example of the stable system, right? You can take an apple and you drop it and it'll hit the ground, and it'll do that every time. It's not something you can mess around with, right? And there are people whose worldview is maybe more in the stable system than in the changing system. So, for example, maybe someone working with the budget, or the CFO or something like that. Even the board itself has a responsibility. The stable system. So, a lot of what the traditional companies have been operating in the stable system, and they should. However, there's also a changing system. And here we have complexity. Here we have innovation. This is where things can happen, perhaps even from the outside, and bring them in. So electric vehicles are now ubiquitous, right? They're everywhere. In the changing system, if you're making buses, or you're making other vehicles or whatever, you might want to pay attention to the trends going on in that space. That would happen in the changing system. So the whole point of this model, of what we call the 4C model, is to have, or to find balance between the stable and the changing systems. And that takes a certain amount of influence, obviously. So you have a protector, someone who, or maybe several people who actually are championing these activities to happen, and to bring in something from the outside of an organization into the organization and integrate it into the ongoing business through entrepreneurship, actually. So intrapreneurial capital is what we mean by that. The ability, the measure of a company's ability to adapt to things happening in complexity. That's what that's about. So anyway, this whole thing is very, very exciting. My background, again, in communications, and I hope that I can add some context to what's going on there. I don't have all the answers, but I think that having some passion and empathy, and maybe even a bit of an ability to come up with metaphors and all kinds of analogies on the fly will help everyone to have a little bit more context, and we need to kind of get together and do this together. That's kind of my role. That's my calling, if you will. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. I totally agree. We have to get together. Nobody has all the answers. And especially today in this VUCA world where everything is moving forward so fast and the technologies are developing at the speed of light, we just have to learn from each other. We have to support each other, and we have to develop our mindset towards this entrepreneurial style where we can really be more curious, when we can have more courage, taking risks in a new way, and taking steps forward in a way we weren't ready to move forward earlier.
I was going to interject something there, because I think you're onto something there with the VUCA world and whatnot. It was a good point. And I think maybe it's the challenge for us is to try to maintain a campus mindset. Like we're on a college campus, and we are willing to meet others and to engage and to interact and to learn, and have a bit of a yes and approach to things, like the improvisational theater. They have the yes and, which is a great exercise. But that kind of campus mindset is essential today for us to move forward, to progress as people, quite frankly, not just in business. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. That's how it is. And we have to be humble and open to this change and to the opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So your book on entrepreneurship delves into the importance of fostering this entrepreneurial spirit within large corporations, organizations. in a different way, in an entrepreneurial way. And can you share some key insights from this book on how entrepreneurship can bridge the gap between corporate leadership and startup innovation?
Sure, sure. So entrepreneurs, just to kind of clarify, if you will, quickly, the people who are the employees, if you will, who are able to, I would call it, thrive in a way in complexity. They are the ones, like entrepreneurs, working in the changing system, and they play a crucial role in driving what we call transformative development projects. And I think it's really the collective knowledge that there's the opportunity there to have organizational support for the folks within your organization to gain this collective knowledge. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Another sort of key takeaway, I would say, would be the corporate culture itself. And that is a supportive culture that fosters kind of a cross-functional collaboration. And networking is really essential. So that it helps to basically reduce conflicts and gets the company sort of, it's able to adapt and able to coexist in a way with these changes. Another one would be, I would say, leadership. So leadership, effective leadership, and we often talk about ambidextrous leadership even, and that's a word that I think is quite underused. Ambidextrous meaning both sides, right? So we're talking about the stable system and the changing system. Leadership really values what's happening in the stable system, very important. Budgets and programs need to work, of course. The board, and we have to have shareholder value and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, absolutely. At the same time, we also need to be able to explore and discover and see if there's something else that we can do. And there are terms, we could say new business development and yada, yada, yada. But the fact is, both sides, in other words, ambidextrous leadership. So in our book, we talk about the need for a protector. We call it a protector, that role. Perhaps it's the CEO, or perhaps it's a few folks in management. But basically, people with enough influence to get things done and to cajole, if you will, persuade the management and motivate why some of these things that are happening in the changing system are necessary. Thanks to AI, in our last episode, we talked a little bit about that. Now we can actually move quickly and iterate and actually come up with even MVPs and prototypes and whatnot to actually show something, the potential for something, to management in the stable system. That is revolutionary. It's fantastic. So that's something that I think we'll see a lot more of. And another one would be, we talked a little bit about it before, was anti-fragility. That's one of the, I would say, key takeaways. And it's something that perhaps not that many people talk about. Nicholas Nassim Taleb wrote a book about anti-fragility. And we've also had contact with Dr. Ruben Puente Dura, who's one of the foremost, I would say, professors on anti-fragile thinking. So basically, an entrepreneurial approach helps build an anti-fragile, almost like a shell within the organization. And what it does is it really increases the company's resilience to external shocks, if you will, or volatility. We talked a little bit about the global pandemic as an example, or the the financial crisis of 2008. And those were hard, very difficult. At the same time, you could say some companies and organizations were able to get stronger from that, oddly enough, right? We had to make some changes, some serious changes. Now we have more hybrid working. And I'm not saying it's all perfect, but in certain cases, it has helped. Clearly now there's a need. We have the LTE, the 5G and the 6G and all that kind of stuff that's going on that Ericsson is doing and others. That, of course, is probably going to, help in this situation to help support the entrepreneurship and the collaborations that need to happen for these anti-fragile structures. So I'd say that's another takeaway. And then we have the corporate authorities themselves. So you talked about bridging the gap between what happens in the changing system and bringing something into the stable system. And I would say maybe some of the best example I can give there would be the story of Amazon Prime, which I told a little while ago. But that story of understanding what's happening outside the company and being able to literally build something and integrate it within the company is essentially what happened with Amazon Prime. Now, of course, there are outside influences that help make this happen perhaps even faster. In the case of Amazon Prime, the product itself, it happened when the company was about, say, 10 years old or so, and really was sort of in pole position to do something radical like that. So, Bezos and the rest of the gang there at Amazon, they were able to set up a digital suggestion box, and they were able to have a working backwards method, and they were able to, communicate this to employees. And then one employee named Charlie Ward came up with the idea, and da. So one thing led to another. They got behind a product roadmap, and they were able to build Amazon Prime from right there within the company. So the lesson here is that even if you're not a huge organization like Amazon, even if you're just, 250, 300 people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a hospital, if you're a school, if you're whatever, you can look within the organization. And if you're able to support this muscle, if you will, within your organization that's happening in the changing system, particularly, and be able to integrate some of the better parts of that into the stable system, that's where the magic happens. So I would say those are the basic takeaways, the general ones. But I would encourage everybody to read the book. You can find it at our website, Intrapreneurial.capital. We also have a group on LinkedIn that's growing. It's called Intrapreneurial Capital, the group on LinkedIn. So you can join there as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I welcome everybody to read the book and join the group on LinkedIn, and the links will be below. And I'm thinking impactful leadership is crucial in both corporate and startup environments, of course, and you just referred to real life examples of how it can impact the outcomes and create fantastic stories. And you also mentioned how leaders can cultivate a leadership style, a special one, the one you mentioned, in these two different contexts, actually, to drive innovation and growth. But what are the common traits of those successful leaders in both worlds on the personal level?
Yeah, common traits. And that's really good, because now we're talking. This is something that's not really discussed that often. in order to foster sort of a culture like that, it has to be authentic, of course. We also don't have the structures in place oftentimes to measure activity. So, for example, you have someone like me who is an entrepreneur, and I'm a classic entrepreneur, right? Let's say I was at the Coca-Cola Company for a number of years, and there I was supported by management to get all kinds of things done. Now, I'm a creative person. I'm also a networker. I have I'm very social. I like to learn things. I like to be the dumbest person in the room, happily. I'll do that in a second. And management, I had several people in management who actually saw that in me. And even though I was fairly young at the time and whatnot, but I was driven, and they understood that I was hungry and interested in these things. What they realized is that if I actually had some way of measuring my success, or how many breakfast meetings, how many conferences have I attended? In other words, let's integrate some of this into his OKRs. Let's put this in the plan for this employee, right? That's interesting. And then I literally had to report back and say, well, this is who I met, and this is what I did, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, and that was very liberating for someone like me. So it's being able to understand, I would say, how different organizational interactions and roles kind of impact the business development. And that's kind of unique. So I would say the Coca-Cola Company was, at that time, very, very unique in that sense of, spotting, identifying certain roles. And I was promoted and had a chance to help out with an acquisition here or there. I mean, really great projects, great assignments. And from there, I've met a few other, let's call them entrepreneurs, but they're usually hiding behind another moniker, if it's a product owner or business developer or a designer or something like that, and not really being supported with a budget, with the ability to do a talk or something, to host an event, to go to the SIGN conference or South by Southwest, because management perhaps doesn't see that there would be any short-term, revenues there, right? So it is an investment, and I think at the end of the day, we all need to have a way of communicating the value and motivating the value of these things. So now today, as things are moving so quickly, particularly with AI, right? A lot of large organizations are interested in exactly what we're talking about, entrepreneurship, and what can we do here, and how do we, create a prototype or an MVP that we can change our business, somehow alter things. That's great, but there needs to be a business case. So the people who are working, this is where I'll sort of wrap it up. The people who are working in the changing system, I would say the challenge there is to make sure that you have a business case, that you communicate it so that it motivates budget in the stable system. Understand and learn the language of those board members, of that management team. Understand how they are measured. If it's bonuses or whatever it is, understand what it is that happens here in the stable system. You don't necessarily have to like it. I understand it. But understand it, yes, very important. And then also be able to show why this change this thing from the outside. So, for example, here's a company in Sweden. We have a company called Scania. It's worldwide, huge, right? Very innovative, fantastic talent there. I would say they probably rival Google when it comes to talent, but people don't even know it. Anyway, but Scania, right? They make buses and all kinds of other vehicles. Now, imagine we're going into the future where we have autonomous vehicles, we have sustainability and all kinds of different ways of traveling in a better way, right? And with logistics, with cargo, and et cetera, et cetera. You could do the math. Now, they're in a great position to develop something that would be kind of a game changer, if you will, in that space. In order to do that, though, the board of Scania would have to understand why we need to do it now. What's the sense of urgency? What are we going to gain from this? What about the shareholders? They need to understand that. So if you're an innovator, an entrepreneur, perhaps, and you're working in Scania, then you need to be meeting as many people that you can, right? In and outside of Scania, to understand the behaviors, to understand the market, to understand the potential, to understand all kinds of stuff there. And to use AI and to dig down and get those insights and do those presentations, but do it in the most succinct way possible so that it can be proposed for your management, right? At the same time, folks, in the stable system, management needs to listen, put their ear to the ground and be able to listen. And that's where that organizational support comes into play. Where they used to say, hire someone from the outside to give them a report or whatever, do some assessment. That's nice, of course. It's also important to be able to have some kind of way of gathering intelligence from within the company. That is what they need to do. So both sides need to kind of meet, if you will, and work on this thing. Did that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's great that we came to the point where we discuss business growth and innovation and what it takes to create that uplift in business results, and at the same time, how entrepreneurs can get their place and show their talents, their gifts in form of results as well. So the use of the latest technologies in AI is transforming businesses at a rapid pace, and you just mentioned that as well. But how can both corporate leaders and startup founders effectively integrate these technologies to drive innovation, to maintain a competitive edge? You already mentioned a few pieces of that experience of yours. Do you have something else you would like to mention? What is really valuable, what is really helpful when we're talking about those latest innovations, technologies, and competition, which is always there?
Yeah. I mean, when you say competition, I kind of immediately go to sports, right? And I think about, even this new kid, what's his, Jude Bellingham, from Real Madrid, and plays footballer. Now, the brilliant thing there is the ability to play defense and offense better than anyone else. Maintaining that is kind of, and I think that there's something to be said for management here. If management can be more like Jude Bellingham from Real Madrid and maintain an offense and defense, in other words, their transformative development would be the offense happening starting in the changing system, and the defense, the ongoing business, protecting that, of course, and doing that. That's great. And those companies, organizations who are have been successful, shall we say, in the last paradigm. They've been very successful. Porsche knows how to make cars, right? Of course, and so forth and so on. Nike knows how to make shoes, athletic shoes, and so forth. So we could go down the list of things. Cambridge University, they know how to train and educate people for higher education. Now, all of those different different sectors, if you will, the companies, the organizations, they're very proficient at doing those things in the ongoing business, particularly in the last paradigm. They've been doing that for years and years and years. They know how to do that. I'm not suggesting that they change that. What we're saying, though, is to augment, maybe even add some other things that are happening in the changing system. And it's necessary. But it takes a campus mindset. It takes this openness, this willing to be open, this ambidextrous quality that we talked about. And that's something that I would say is something that management should really consider. That's it in a nutshell.
I totally agree. And on top of everything we've been talking about today, what are some other practical steps companies can take to foster a culture of entrepreneurship and ensure that innovation initiatives are impactful and, what is also really important, sustainable?
Impactful and sustainable. Well, I mean, of course, measuring your entrepreneurial efforts is extremely important. Actually, measuring anything, if it's not measured, it doesn't exist, right? So I would say establishing the KPIs, establishing those things for whatever your innovation projects are, whatever you're setting out to do, to make sure there's a way of measuring your success, to understand what is the desired outcome here, what are we trying to do here, is number one. So setting out there, instead of just saying, let's see what happens, try to have some idea of, the landscape and what you're actually measuring. And there can be a disparity there. Let's put it like this. People working in the changing system, once again, may have a propensity to explore and to just go wild, right? Just go beyond. I mean, even Steve Jobs, who was maybe one of the best examples of an intrapreneur, operating way out here in the changing system, and some maybe felt like he was a loose cannon, oh, what's he doing out there? He's doing this and that. Now, in the changing system, there's enormous potential. There's complexity. Imagine operating in the changing system and being able to, in a way, translate all of the potential wonderful things that could happen into the stable system. And that's really what we call the reveal. It's the only horizontal movement in the 4C model in our book, The Principles of Intrapreneurial Capital. So Albert and Birgitte actually came up with the 4C model, which is, the different contexts, stable system over here on the left and the changing system on the right. And you can look at that on our website, intrapreneurial.capital, intrapreneurial with an I, very important. So with the model, the 4C model, being able to go from the changing system into the stable system is really where the magic is. And that it takes influence, it takes a certain amount of understanding, it takes this campus mindset, the win or learn mentality, I would say, is really what it's about. And those are maybe you could call them soft values, but they are extremely important, and that's the only way forward. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all these golden nuggets with our listeners and viewers today. Roland, it's really valuable to hear those stories and experiences from different companies, from different perspectives. And I think it is really about time to bridge together those two worlds and find a way of creating that magic based on the best, most powerful pieces, which are hidden both in the entrepreneurial and in the corporate worlds, and then put them together and create that intrapreneurial mindset and approach and leadership style where we can reach new levels
Yeah.
and expand the businesses.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Digital Transformation for Humans. I'm Amy, and it was enriching to share this time with you. Remember, the core of any transformation lies in our human nature, how we think, feel, and connect with others. It is about enhancing our emotional intelligence, embracing a winning mindset, and leading with empathy and insight. Subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes where we uncover the latest trends in digital business and explore the human side of technology and leadership. Until next time, keep nurturing your mind, fostering connections, and leading with heart.